Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Really excited to have my good friend Justin Setzer on with us today. He's a former pastor and he really has a great framework to follow. A lot of us that are in real estate are doing this for kind of freedom and for a bigger calling. It's not always about more money for the sake of money, at least. There's nothing wrong with money. But today we're going to talk about a framework that you can follow to kind of help superpower your charge and why you get up every day and do what we do. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Justin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy. I'm so excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today because as I told you, I've been looking for a framework to kind of follow myself. There's a ton of them out there, right? But I'm the type of guy that I don't like to, this may seem a little counterintuitive because we're creating a podcast right now, but I don't like to recreate the wheel. I just often find something that works and then make it my own or find a framework that works and just that works for me. And I think probably a lot of people are like that because we're not as, why recreate the wheel if something already works, right? So excited to learn about your background and the framework that you use because I think a lot of other people could benefit from that. So, hey, before I talk us to death here, why don't you tell us about you and kind of how you got into real estate investing?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I was in ministry as early as 25 years old. Actually became a lead pastor when I was 29 and single, which is unusual. But what happened is when my wife and I got married, we I don't know how else to tell, but to be honest. So when you're a minister, when you're dating somebody, there's some things you can't do that you typically can do when you're dating. So we figured out a way to keep ourselves busy. We asked ourselves 500 questions. Literally, we went through 500 questions. And one of the questions was, when you get older and have kids, would you like to both parents to work or one stay home? And I was totally surprised because my mom worked hard my whole life and she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And what we realized when we got married was that we needed to be out of debt to make that happen. The problem was when we got married, we had 3 homes, 2 rentals. So or 3 rentals. We were already in real estate and we had a home that we lived in. So that was our beginning stage was we had some rental properties. And then over time, we ended up fixing them up and selling them so we could get ourselves to the place so my wife could reach her dreams, which was being a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, that's great. And I know that's hard as a pastor to, it's not like you have a great income to necessarily be able to allow your wife to be a stay-at-home mom, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not negative, but yeah, in some ways you're living.
Well, yeah, but there's a lot of even public servants and teachers and people like that. They have very noble professions, but they just don't pay that well, right? I mean, there's an emotional paycheck that comes with it, but that emotional paycheck doesn't pay for the lifestyle you want necessarily, right?
Yeah. So the benefits were not typically in that position or other, like you said, public servants is definitely not in the salary that comes to it. So yeah, we were looking for other ways and other ways to make things kind of happen besides just my weekly paycheck from the ministry.
Yeah. And I know now, so now you focus full time on real estate, obviously a member of Investor Fuel Mastermind as well. And the great thing is, and I think that's one of the great things about our group is everybody wants to make more money. I mean, but it's not all about the money. It's once you get to a certain point, you're like, well, what am I going to do with that money? What is the tool that allows me to, what does that allow me to do with it? Right. And I think for you, you have the insight, and I think we're all this way too, is we all want to work less, right, and have more life balance and stuff. So talk a little bit about kind of your, what your goal is, I guess, and then let's kind of get into how you keep yourself on the path to what your long-term goal is.
Yeah. So yeah. So with the real estate, like I said, I was in ministry for 13 years, and during that time, I really focused highly on purpose. I learned how to create a life plan where every single week of my life, I read over um, like key areas of my life, and one of them was my finances. Um, that I would read over every single week. And when I got called, I actually got called out of ministry. I was walking on the beach with my twin brother, July 4th, 2018, and I just knew in my spirit my season of ministry was over. I didn't do anything wrong. And then at the end, I was like, I got to do something. And what was interesting is in my life plan, I review it every 90 days, and I was praying over my financial area. I thought I started getting into flipping, and that's kind of how it all started. It was me on a park bench overlooking the water in Florida. And I was like, I'm going to do 5 flips per year. I'm going to make 150K compared to a pastoral salary was like, a huge jump. When you get into real estate, though, you realize there's definitely room for increase over that. And that's how I kind of got into it. And I started on myself, and yeah.
Yep. So what's the framework you follow? Because a lot of people set goals. We're coming up here on the new year. So a lot of people are going to set goals, and the statistics. A lot of people, those like New Year's resolutions will be dead in like, 10 days after the new year
Yeah, they're not
starts.
going to make it.
But I think what helps is when people have a true vision, something that they really put some thought into, and then they remind themselves frequently, just like you talked about, of why that's important to them and what their goal is. So talk a little about you mentioned up front this kind of VIP framework.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I was doing coaching, when I was doing pastoring, I ended up hiring a coaching company. I started learning the idea of life business planning. And then over time, I created while standing on the shoulders of giants, I started creating my own system, which is like 60% mine and 40% of what I learned. But what I realized for a lot of people is one of the greatest things that they're missing clarity. Like you wake up in the morning, you're up and you're doing well maybe, and a lot of the real estate guys are doing well, but you have this nagging feeling that something else is kind of missing, that you're not like checking off all the boxes. But what if there was a way that you didn't have to have that feeling? But what if there was a way in the future that you could have it? And there is. And like Mike said, I have this framework that part of it's purely created by me. Maybe somebody else came up with it, but they don't know about it. Is for life and business planning. I focus on this is individual for me. For you might be different here. 6 F's. Faith, family, friends, fitness, fun, and finances. And then I also have a separate section for business. But what I do is I create a framework. I take a key priority area. It's an area in your life that's important to you. Mine may be different than yours, but there's 3 to 5 areas in your life that if you were to make some simple changes would give you incredible, great momentum. So for each area, I give 2 sections. The first one's VIP. And V stands for vision. And vision is a clear mental picture of what could be, fueled by the conviction that it should be. That's actually from another person. But what it means is that there is a vision for each individual area of your life, and there is vision gives you clarity of what it could be, but also vision shows you that it should be. Like for me, my vision for my wife is always that I have an ear to hear what my wife would say, that she would always know that she's second in my life only to God. And that's a vision of what could be. And I think you guys would agree that should be. I should have an ear to hear. She should have a great level of priority in my life. So that's vision. Like vision is future, like where you're trying to go. And the second part is inspiration. And this is different depending on your values, but I give 3 different options. So an option for everybody is a scripture, a quote, or a person. So, for scripture for me, it was to love my wife as Christ loved the church. For somebody else, it's something else. Or it could be a person, which is somebody you admire. Maybe somebody has a really good business and you admire what they're doing in business. Maybe somebody's really good in health. And then the final part is purpose. And this is the big missing key. So when my wife told me she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, we had our second kid, and I had 3 mortgages, and I knew that I had to get 100% out of debt on a very small salary, I knew I needed something greater, and that thing is purpose. I think one of the biggest missing pieces in people's lives when to really achieve the greatness that God has created them for is they do not dive deep enough in their purpose. Even finances, I think you can make a ton more money if you had a purpose behind you, driving you absolutely for the right cause in the right directions, you could wake up every morning on fire, ready to move forward. So the framework for me for purpose is this. And when I teach this, when I train this, is my purpose in my, let's say, family, my wife, is to be out of debt so that she could be a stay-at-home mom, because that was her dream. Or in my health, I had this for a long time. My purpose is to take care of my body so that one day somebody won't have to take care of me. I don't want to be a slob when I'm older. I don't want to have somebody else take care of me. I'm walking around with a walker at a young age, unless something, God forbid, happens like a stroke or something, which we can't. So having a clear purpose. And for me, every single week, I read this, my vision, my inspiration, and my purpose. And then there's a second part, but I don't know what might be best if we need to stop there.
Well, I think, yeah. So from a purpose standpoint, it's interesting because I struggle with this myself. I find myself sometimes like we have several businesses, they do well. We live below our means. Like when I first started in real estate investing, it was about survival. Like we need to pay the bills and stuff like that. Right. And we're not at that point anymore. So, and I often find myself either saying to my wife or myself, like, why are we doing this? Like, what is this for? Like, what is the purpose behind this? And it's not all money. And sometimes it's things that just aren't making money either. It's like, what's the point of this? But sometimes even when you have money, it's like, well, I'm inspired. I'm always like looking for something next to tackle. Like I always want the challenge of that, but then it kind of pulls me in. It's like, why would I take that risk, or why am I doing that? And I think I think that's why a lot of real estate investors and probably all entrepreneurs kind of plateau, because you get to a point and you're like, hey, you were a pastor, and it's not hard based on what you said in real estate to make many times more in salary than what you made. And you get there and you're like, well, I was able to survive on that before. Surely I could survive on, 5X this. It's like, what's my purpose or what's my drive to take me beyond that? Because I don't need that to live on. Is it just, I don't say greed, like not greed's not a bad thing. Is it just drive? Is it ego? Like, what is it that's driving me there? And I think those things can drive you there, but I think a healthy thing is to have a purpose of what you're going to do when you get to that next level, right?
Yeah, and especially if you can really, what's interesting from a psychology point of view, a lot of people know Maslow has like a hierarchy of needs,
Right.
Where it's like you have to survive, you have to like food and shelter, and then they used to think like the top thing was like you reaching your best, but they actually realized that it's actually more transcendent than that. That like for you to reach your highest purpose and feel fulfilled, that greatest hierarchy need they realized was that you basically trying to help other people reach their purpose and like helping others. They realized that was like, and whether innately like a strong human need, and like waking up and starting to look at others, like, can you be others focused? Like, yeah, in real estate, if you do well, if you're wise, I mean, you can crush it, right? You can like, the sky's the limit. Like if you don't have a mindset issue, at least.
Right.
But I think the purpose is like a huge missing piece for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And and there's a couple of different exercises that I've done to help people try to like think about and kind of uncover a little bit on that side. There's a couple different things you can do, all very simple.
Could you, I know you can't go into a lot of detail, but could we spend a couple minutes on that? Because I think that, there's probably a lot of people that are listening right now that have businesses that are doing well. And sometimes they struggle with, like, you get to a point to you're like, what is it all for? Like, why, what's my next, like, I want to go to the next step, but
yeah, I mean, obviously, for me, it was just obviously based on my faith, always honoring God as a high purpose. But even beyond that, I think we each have like a part to play in loving people, and like to try to uncover your purpose. There's a couple different like processes, and they're also like very simple. And all you're trying to do is uncover it for you specifically, and yours is going to maybe be quite different than mine, and your state of life and relationships. But one of the ways is this actually came out of the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of them. A lot of things I didn't learn. And what they do is like, you ask yourself why you're doing something, and then you just keep going until you hit something. Like, oh, I'm doing this, I want to make good money. But why? I want to have a nice car, but why? I want to have stability. Why? I want to make sure my kids are okay, when they're older. Like you hit some gold. And then that's one of the parts. The other thing you need to do is you need to really watch yourself when you notice that you're having like some kind of emotional experience. Like, what's making me laugh, cry, Like, cause like all of a sudden I'll be listening something and like, I'll hear like this ministry in Los Angeles bought like 10,000 presents for kids. I'm like in my heart, something's touching me.
Yeah.
Like you have to realize that there's something else beyond yourself. And, you know, if you can learn to live a life beyond, you know, if you can learn to live a life that's not all about you, your life is going to live beyond you. And that's what you want. Like if you're not all about yourself, all about what's here and now, if you can learn to do that, you're going to live a life. It's like leadership. One person said, if leadership's not all about you, it'll go way beyond you. So learning to live a really other-centered focus. And I think if you are a person who's very blessed, I think to whom much is given, much is required. I think like you have a great influence and you have a great ability to help people. You can't help every single person. It's not a good idea.
Right.
But I think that your purpose, like for your calling, has a lot to do with like using what you know, what you have to help others. And you will definitely be most fulfilled when you learn to live a life that is like focused on helping and encouraging others, even if it's just like being a better husband, like, you know, being a better father. You know, like for me, when I go through the process of creating this life and business plan, I have vision, inspiration, purpose, and then I have the way I set the goals, path, primary goal, who's keeping me accountable, when I do it, and then my habit that helps me to get from where I'm currently at to my vision and my goal. Like recently I lost about 30 pounds. One day my wife was like, hey, it's getting a little bit harder to put my arms around you. I was like, oh gosh, that wasn't very pleasant. So, and, you know, so
That's a
every
nice
week,
way to say it.
yeah, I'm sure that was hard. She's a very great, my wife's a wonderful woman. I'm blessed. She's one in a billion, not one in a million, but one in a billion for sure. And yeah.
Yeah, I think you know what you said when you have it written down too. It's like affirmations, right? If you read it regularly, you look at it, it's front and center all the time. It just starts to, because it's real easy to write down goals and put them in a notebook somewhere, or you know, stuff it away, file it away somewhere, type it in somewhere, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and you forget about it, right? And so I think the benefit of having these things that you review, whether it's daily affirmations or weekly or certainly monthly even, then we all pick up bad habits, right? We like go down this path of like, I'm on track, and then all of a sudden this happens or this happens, and you just start getting out of whack, and you kind of need these almost like tune-ups to come back to the line, right?
Yeah. So like for me, like every single week I read, and honestly, I did it for like years straight. Corona kind of threw it off. Honestly, even for me, it happens to everybody. I'm back on it pretty consistently, like reading my life plan every week. And every quarter I take 2 hours off or 3 hours off, and I revamp the whole thing. Another thing that really helps me, and this is not in there, when I'm trying to hit a goal in an area that I have typical bad habits, all of us have bad habits, like all of us, is I ask myself a question. Like for instance, like with my wife, my desire is to serve her. So when I want to do something that's selfish or not nice, I ask myself the question, how does it serve my wife? So I ask internally, like all the time, how does this serve my wife? Or for business, you can ask, how is this moving me towards my goal? Like you always want to be getting yourself, like asking yourself questions, getting accountability, which that might be a lot of people's problem. You want to be this island to yourself. And it's very clear that goals are hit much better when accountability is added to it. Like some of you need to like come out of the dark and like get somebody to keep you accountable. And for fitness, that might be a personal trainer, or if you can afford that, or for business, you might need to get a coach. If you try and get a real estate, you can, you know, I know, or like join a mastermind where people are loving and once in a while letting you know that, hey, you gotta, you can step it up here a little bit, but you need that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Powerful stuff. Awesome. For folks that are, maybe give some guidance here, because we're right at kind of the new year type time frame for folk, and this stuff is important even if you're watching this later and it's like, you know, October. Don't wait until New Year's. Like you should put it in place immediately. But any kind of words of wisdom for folks to kind of get started on, I guess you would probably advise like following a proven framework, right? Because sometimes people don't really know, they kind of know what their goals are. They know what's important to them, but they don't like have a framework to kind of plug it into. But any kind of words of wisdom for folks to help get this down and actually use it.
Yeah, I think you want to follow a framework, because if you have to like make your own framework and make goals, and honestly, the reason why you want to use other frameworks is because you want to use something that's like proven to work. Like you don't want to just like, you know, you want to, You want to like take something that's proven to work. So I think what you need to do, and this is just my opinion, is you need to get out of your day to day. Like you're caught in each one of us is caught in some kind of rhythm, some kind of habit. You need to get some time off. And my encouragement is to pick 3 areas of your life. If you've never done this before, don't try to do every area. Don't try to do 10, don't try to do 100. You're going to overwhelm yourself. You're not going to do it. You're going to get frustrated. In 2 weeks, you're going to be done with it. Pick 3 areas. Like for me, like I said, I look at the 6S and then my business too. So 3 areas, and you got to do one. Like if you're in real estate, you got to include that around because they're intertwined. They're not separate, you know? So if pick 3 areas that if you make a huge difference will have a great impact. And then decide where you want to go. Like, what does it look like? Like close your eyes or think about like, if you were like hitting a home run in this area, what does it look like? Like, how does it feel? What does it seem like? And then just write it. Like if you would describe 6 months from now or a year from now, if you were in like exact place you'd want to be, just write that down. And then figure out something that inspires you. And then, like I said, you have to have a purpose. So I think pick 3 areas, you know, for us, me, you know, faith, family, friends, fitness, finances, and fun. Honestly, for me, one of the biggest changes is fun. I do great in my relationships, but like I was like needing an outlet. So for me, it's boating. Other people like to go to the gun range or whatever. For me, the only thing that gets my mind to shut down is like just being out on a boat on the water. It's like, otherwise my mind goes very quickly. I've been wired with a very fast mind in a lot of areas. So I think getting away, picking 3 areas, when you come back, get some accountability, put it on your schedule. And probably one of the biggest things is you have to like take, if you add things to your schedule, there's one thing that's really wasting your time in your life right now. That's a total drainer. You probably need for a season to try to like fast that thing. If it's social media, whatever it is, because like, if you're really going to try to get to a new place in life, in your business, there's going to require some bandwidth, and you probably already are at your max. So you got to like take something out, like something's got to give.
Right. How do you free up time to fit this in? Yeah. Cause we all are full for the most part, right?
Yeah. We fill it in. Yeah. We fill in the gaps. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Justin, you've been a member of Investor Fuel for a while now. I think coming up on a year, right?
Yeah.
Getting close to that. So would you mind just kind of sharing some of your kind of experiences and you know, what your thoughts are on Investor Fuel?
Yeah. So when I was in my last business in coaching, I knew that you always needed to get help. So like immediately on full-time real estate, I was doing like a deal-ish a month. And I tried to call him. And then after I was like at like the level where, the Investor Fuel would be like, yeah, this is a good time, I immediately joined them. Honestly, I joined it like a month or 2 after going full-time real estate. That's because I hit the ground running. I set myself up financially where I could do that. And what's interesting is, you don't know what you don't know. You could be sitting there as an investor and like, man, I feel like I'm doing really well, and not being negative, but there's things that you simply don't know. There's other methodologies, there's other things that are effective. And until you get around a group of people who's willing to share, which Investor Fuel is probably, it's maybe the most apparent characteristic trait of Investor Fuel or culture, is that it's a giving culture. You won't grow. Like for me, if I did not enjoy Investor Fuel, we'd probably be doing still like a deal a month. I'd be buying properties too expensive, not making as much profit. I wouldn't be able to grow a team. We have multiple full-time people now. We're doing, we're growing every month, we're growing and be blessed. And I definitely, whatever money I've invested, I've received at least a 10 or 20x fold, and any investment that is well worth the money. So I think if you're in real estate thinking about doing it, you need help. You need to get on other people. You know what? It's a small investment for a huge return. And I think it'd be foolish not to join Mastermind. I think Investor Fuel is a very open, loving, caring group. They help each other up. We're also very honest and transparent. And at the end of the day, you also build great relationships with other people. And that person might be the one who you guys help each other a little bit accountable. We have people that I talk with every week from Investor Fuel. So it's great.
That's awesome, man. I really appreciate the kind words there. So it means a lot. Awesome. Well, you operate primarily in the Tampa area, doing some stuff in the Carolinas. If folks wanted to connect with you in any way on social media or any other way, where would they go to learn more?
Yeah. So either, you can find me on social media, or Facebook, whatever, just Justin Setzer, Setzer, or email me at letter J Setzer, Setzer at homeoptions.us. If there's anything I can do, if you need encouragement, I can send you an old framework I have for making a life and business plan. They all go together. I'd love to help out in that if I can.
Amazing. We'll add a link down below for your Facebook page. So Justin, thanks for spending time with us today.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, buddy. And everybody, hey, thanks. Hope you got some good value. I got good value. Selfishly, I'll be honest, I do this show probably more for me than I do for everybody else. I just love to get together with Investor Fuel members and hang out for sure. But I always learn something. And I think just Justin is really amazing with creating a framework to help you kind of plan your life. And I think a lot of us have questioned a lot of things this year, especially of like, what is this all for? What does this all mean? And kind of reflecting on what we want so that when we come out of this mess that we're in, we're living a better life. And hopefully you got some wisdom from that today that you can use in your life. So appreciate you all a bunch. We'll see you on the next show. Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.